Good afternoon and welcome to Hiring and Retaining Quality Employees. This is part 3 of this webinar series. My name is Jenny Dugard. I am the Human Resources Director with Team Horner Group. And today we're going to be talking all about retention and how to retain great employees. Before we get started, just a brief housekeeping reminder. I will set some time aside at the end of the presentation to take any questions that you may have or any comments that you may have. I do ask that you wait until the end to go ahead and send me those questions and those comments. I will let you know when, and we're going to be using that raise your hand feature to be able to address any questions and concerns that you have. Great, so let's get started. So the main challenge we as employers face today is not only to attract the best talent, but also how to retain them. For those of you who have been with me for the beginning of these series, the first 2 presentations that I did was all about how to attract that talent and how to hire that talent. Today, we're going to be spending time on how to retain them once you found them. So how do you rise to that challenge? The very first thing is, of course, to hire the right people. The second thing would be to empower your employees, and we're going to spend some time giving you some tips on how to do that. You want to give your employees the authority to get things done. You hire these people to do a job. You want to make sure that they have the authority, that they have the equipment, that they have the knowledge and the ability to be able to do those tasks and those individual jobs that you hire them to do. You want to make sure employees realize that they're the most valuable asset of your organization. And we're going to talk about in detail how to do that. I'm going to ask that you have faith in them, that you trust them, and of course, above all, that you respect them. That you give them a why by providing them information and knowledge. I understand that there's going to be some things that you cannot share with those among your ranks, but overall, you should be able to give them that why, that sense of belonging. Why are we doing this? Why is the company going in this direction? Why was this decision made? And the knowledge that you have that they're going to need to be able to make those wise decisions in the jobs that they're doing for your company. And then, of course, giving them constant constructive feedback on their performance and recognition. So let's be honest, constantly cycling through new employees is a pain in the you-know-what. It can lead to loss of money, not only from recruiting aspect, but from the turnover aspect, from training and everything that you have to do to get a new person in the door. You can lose company knowledge. And of course, it's going to interrupt your operations. Sometimes it can affect loss or morale if you see a lot of people exiting the business. But more importantly, it creates a disruption for your customers, for the customer satisfaction that you're trying to provide, and it can lead to loss of sales as well. So as an HR director, I get asked quite frequently, what are the top reasons why employees leave? There's a lot of research out there, and I've gone ahead and condensed this to the most popular reasons for 2022 and 2023 as to why employees are leaving their employers. So the number one reason still stands is that employees leave bad managers. And by bad managers, it could be somebody that they perceive that they do not have a connection with, somebody that they perceive does not respect them, or somebody that doesn't give them that feedback that they're looking for. The next reason is the job is not what they expected it to be. And one way to counter that is to make sure that when you are interviewing for this job, that you are doing a good job on your job description, that you're being specific with what a typical day in the life of that job looks like. And when you're interviewing that person, you're not sugarcoating what they're going to be doing day in and day out. Next, on the list is they don't see growth opportunities. A lot of the times, of course, everybody thinks growth is growing up the ladder, going from being a customer service person to then maybe being a supervisor or a manager. But a lot of the times growth can be lateral, and it can go learning a different skill or a different position. And I don't think managers and business owners do a good enough job of explaining what growth looks like within their organization. It's not always being, a boss. It's not always being a manager. It could be filling in the gaps to a skill or a knowledge or a department that you have never done before. And that's also an area for growth. Next on this list is no trust and confidence in leaders. And that comes from, again, not having open lines of communication, lack of appreciation or recognition, little or no feedback when it comes to coaching, lack of overall trust and support. We're seeing a lot more stress from overwork, and we're going to talk about how you can counter that later on in the presentation. Compensation as well. Now, typically, the majority of employers think that compensation is a lot higher on this list, and maybe for 2023 it may be a couple of points higher, but overall, compensation is not the main reason why people are leaving. I think it's a combination of all of this, but yes, compensation is part of it as well. New opportunities. They think that the grass is going to be greener on the other side. No personal life, there is none of that work-life balance. They may be having some physical restraints. And another one that's become very popular in 22 and 23 has been relocation. So when it comes to retention, what should you be looking at? We're going to talk about the 5 pillars retention involves. These are not in any particular order, but we are going to go through them, and then I'm going to give you some tips that has on how you can get through these 5 pillars of retention. Number 1 is compensation. We're going to talk about, what compensation entails. In its essence is, what do I get paid to do for this job? But compensation is a lot more than just that. We're going to talk about the environment, where I work, who do I work with? Am I recognized? Do I feel safe? Is it diverse? And everything that goes into that environment. Growth, and I just was talking about that earlier. What does growth look like? What training is available to me? How can you help me develop my skills? And is there a defined career path? And what does that career path look like? The next pillar is, of course, support, that very important work-life balance, diversity and inclusion. And the last pillar is communication. And that is, how engaging are you with your employees? What metrics do you have in place? What are you doing with that feedback that you're collecting from your employees? Are there open lines of communication, and what does that look like? And more importantly, are you prepared to listen and take that constructive criticism that you collect? So let's get into our tips. The first retention tip that I have for you today is how to align your culture, your mission, and your values. The first thing that you need to do is build a culture of trust. That trust comes from doing what you say you're going to do, having open lines of communication, letting them know, this is the reasons why we're making the decisions that we're making. Giving them an environment where they feel safe to speak up. All of that is going to build that culture of trust. You need to give employees a reason to want to stay. What makes me different than my competitor? What makes me different than the company across the street? What can I do for you that's going to make you want to stay? We're going to talk about treating everyone with mutual respect and appreciation. You want to build a company culture that prioritizes employees' well-being and that work-life balance. You want to make sure that you're valuing every contribution that's given. You want to make sure that you have somebody who wants to continue to learn and grow. Very important, you want to hold your managers accountable for their actions. And the last tip when it comes to culture, mission, and values is that you want to make sure that you're putting your employees first. The second retention tip is compensation and pay. While compensation does constitute the largest part of the retention process, it's not just the paycheck that they take home every week or every other week or whatever your pay cycle may be. When it comes to salary and wages, you want to make sure that you're practicing fair market value. And when it comes to fair market value, you need to make sure that you're comparing yourself apples to apples. If you're a company of 20 employees, or if you're a company of 50 employees, you cannot compare yourself to an Apple or an Amazon or any other Fortune 500 company. You need to be looking at companies within your industry, within your same size, and then see what they're paying to make sure that you're staying within fair market value. You want to make sure that you're issuing comparative merit increases. If you know that the cost of living increase right now is tending at about 6%, a 2% merit increase may not necessarily be considered fair market value. So that's one of those things that you want to take into consideration. And same thing with salary adjustments when they're warranted. If somebody is taking on additional responsibilities or they're doing the jobs of 2 people in one, if that salary adjustment that you're doing is within fair market value. If you issue bonuses, you want to make sure that those bonuses are tied to individual performance. Same thing with commission. You want to make sure the employees know that commission structure is tied to their individual growth and achievement. Make sure that those commissions are attainable and that you're communicating to them how that commission structure and that bonus structure works. Part of the compensation package is also benefits, and that's going to include, of course, your medical, your dental, your vision, but also your paid time off and any other benefits that you offer, like if you offer a car allowance, or if you offer a company car, or if you offer a cell phone. All of those things can be tied into that benefit and also part of that compensation package. And of course, retirement, if you have a 401k and you do an employer match or you do a Roth, anything that you do towards the retirement is also part of that compensation package. So even though employees will always have high expectations regarding their compensation, they're always going to want to expect top of the mill when it comes to the paychecks. It is your responsibility as their manager to get them to understand that salary and wages is just part of that compensation package. And today I'm going to share with you what I consider my pro tip. It's something that we implemented here at Team Horner Group about 3 years ago and is very successful for us. We call it a total compensation statement. And this is what it looks like. A total compensation statement is a one-pager, and we use this for two things. Number one, we use it to attract new employees, and we also use it for our current employees. And as you will see on this slide, what is on here is everything that is involved in that compensation package. So base salary is included. If they're an hourly employee, we will calculate the overtime that we have paid them for that year. If they've gotten any bonuses, we include that as part of their annual earnings. But then we break away an addition to that. We talk about their benefits. Every cent that the company pays for on behalf of that employee is represented on this section of benefits. You know, it's what we pay for their medical insurance, for their dental insurance, for the vision insurance, but we'll also go into detail as far as, you know, what we're responsible to pay for as far as employee taxes and unemployment and those kind of things. We include 401k matches on here. If we do an HSA match, we include that as well. And any other educational assistance or car allowance or anything else that we provide as part of that benefit package is broken down in this section. And the third section that we include in this total reward statement is what we consider the paid time off. So that would be what the company paid for as far as vacation, as far as sick days, as far as holidays. And then within these three peers, what we do as a total compensation is we total it all up and combine it all up. And every year we sit down with our employees and we show them this. You know, it's not just what you take home every paycheck. This is everything else that the company is paying for and giving you for being our employee. And we have found that to be very successful to counter, you know, when they're talking about, you know, possibly earning $2 or $3 more an hour when they get a big picture of everything that is included in that compensation package. So that's my pro tip of the day for you. The next retention tip that we're going to be talking about is paying attention to feedback. And here are some strategies that you can use for feedback. The number one and easiest way to collect feedback is, of course, asking for surveys. It is a good way for you to be able to determine what you're getting right, what they like, and where you may be falling short, and some areas for improvement. I would encourage you to consider doing these surveys anonymously. That allows employees, you know, a little bit more freedom to truly speak their mind and be more honest when they're giving you their opinions. Be open to new ideas as you're asking for these surveys. But most importantly, and one of the things that I think is harder for business owners and managers, is to be willing to take that constructive criticism. At the end of the day, when you're doing these employee satisfaction surveys, their perception is your reality when it comes to retention. So if the feedback that you're getting is against what you're thinking, you have to open up your mind and deal with that perception. You want to encourage an open door policy where employees can bring up, you know, hot ticket items, areas of concern, or even the next great idea to a problem or a suggestion on how to make a process improvement. One of the best ways we have found to do that is to host a meal, kind of like a round table where everybody can come in, you know, whether it's breakfast or lunch. It is a great way for you as the manager or as the business owner to sit down with your employees and ask them direct questions and get some feedback. So that's another good way to get that feedback. But Once you've gotten that feedback, the most important thing that I need you to understand and I want you to walk away from this presentation with is that you have to do something with that feedback. You have to be ready to make some changes and to make some adjustments. And the best way that this is going to help you with retention is it's going to allow your employees to feel like they're listening, like their opinions are being heard, their suggestions are being taken into consideration. I understand that not everything is feasible and attainable and doable, but there are some things that you should be able to implement, even if it's in long term. And you need to do a good enough job communicating to your employees that those changes and that those suggestions are being taken into consideration and put into place. I will caution you that change is not always easy for all. So when you're implementing some of these changes, especially if they're going to be drastic changes, even if it's for the better, that you're going to do that gradually and not all at once. So everybody on the team has the ability and time to adapt and adjust. The next retention tip I have for you is focusing on work-life balance. And work-life balance is one of those that we want to make sure that we are reading the signs. We want to make sure that there is a gentle balance between work and employees having time with their families and what that time looks like for them. So the best tips that I have for you, number one, is to promote ways to disconnect once they are out of the office and to be able to understand and read the signs of possible breakdowns and burnouts. So here are some of the signs that you want to be looking for that really relates to breakdowns and burnouts. Of course, absenteeism, taking more sick days than usual, any change in their normal interactions, in their normal personality, in their normal day in to day out is usually a sign that something is going on with that employee. So this is a list of that. If are they making mistakes? Are they making constant mistakes? Are they showing you signs of depression? Or do they seem exhausted to you? Are they disheveled? Do you all of a sudden see lack of motivation? Are they all of a sudden bringing negativity into the workforce? Is there, anger or persistent irritability that wasn't there before? That all of those are signs of burnout. But probably the biggest one that we miss is this last one that's listed on this list is working odd hours. Are you seeing employees sending emails at 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night, 12 o'clock at night, when that's not their norm? Their norm usually was, 6 or 7, that's it, the day is done, and they don't pick up again until the next day. When you see that drastic change in an employee, that's a big sign for you that they don't have that work-life balance, and there may be that breakdown and that burnout. So you want to be mindful of that. You want to encourage employees to take time off, but more importantly, you want to respect their time off. Avoid calling them when they're on vacation. If they're taking a sick day, don't text them with work-related matters. It can wait. And if it can wait, it should wait. The building is not going to burn down because they're at a doctor's appointment. The building is not going to break down because they're taking vacation. So let them enjoy their time off and be respectful of that time off. And just for a little bit of humor, if it's a true emergency, dial 911. The last tip that I have when it comes to a work-life balance for you is to implement an employee assistance program if you don't already have one. An employee assistance program, or an EAP, is something that you can purchase as an employer, and it is a support system that you can provide to your employees that can help them figure out things when life happens to them. And things like, divorce, marital advice, if they're going through financial difficulty, if they've experienced loss, if they're going through emotional problems, if they have anxiety or depression, if there's family issues, or even if it's something more drastic like substance abuse or alcohol misuse. An employee assistance program is a tool that you can provide at no cost to them that can help them and give them sources and resources to deal with those kind of issues. An EAP can usually be quoted as part of your benefits plan. So if you have a medical insurance, and you do not have an EAP, I would speak to your medical carrier or your broker and find out if this is something that you can implement for your employees. It's fairly inexpensive. It's 100% anonymous for employees, and it's a great tool to be able to get them back on track when they fall short of that work-life balance. The next tip that I have for you is empowering your employees, and this has more to do with their environment. The American Psychological Association says that employees who work in an environment that provides them the freedom to work in the way that suits them makes them more engaged. So, what does that mean to you? Forget micromanaging. It's 2023. Allow employees to be and empower them to be able to make decisions, come to you with solutions to a problem, be able to think outside the box and implement those things. So don't micromanage them, empower them to solve their own problems and their own issues. Give your teams tools and learning opportunities that they need to be able to do their job, whether they're in office or remote. Very important for me, allow your employees to learn from their mistakes. It's easy to chastise employees when they make mistakes, but empower them to not only fix them, but to learn from what they did wrong. That's going to build that trust. That's going to make them want to stay. When they see your company, they see you as a manager, as somebody who is not going to chastise them for making mistakes, but allow them to grow from them, you're going to buy that loyalty by doing so. And you want to set up regular one-on-ones to review that progress, talk about concerns, and celebrate successes. It doesn't have to be a lengthy one-on-one. It can be 10, 15 minutes. It could be 30 minutes. As long as you come into that one-on-one with some structure, you should very quickly be able to talk about, what's on your plate, what's stressing you out, what's bothering you, what concerns do you have, and what are your successes for the week or the month, however often you schedule them. The next tip that we're talking about when it comes to retention is going to be inclusion and diversity. I do teach a class that involves getting into the weeds about inclusion and diversity. I'm not going to do that today. I'm just going to give you kind of the aerial view of what inclusion and diversity looks like. So in its simplest form and the best analogy that I can give you, diversity and inclusion are like baking a cake. Diversity is the ingredients needed to make that cake. You can't make a cake with just eggs. You can't make a cake with just flour. You can't make a cake with just water. You need to be able to find a balance and combine all of those ingredients to be able to make that cake. So diversity are the ingredients that you need. Inclusion is the mix. Inclusion is how many eggs you add, how much flour you add, whether you add cocoa, whether you add cinnamon. It's the mix to make that cake. And for those of you who are bakers, you know that the more creative that you get with your ingredients, the better that cake comes out. So when it comes to inclusion and diversity, simply having a diverse group or a diverse team does not work. You need to make sure that you have inclusivity. You need to make sure that you're getting all of those ingredients into your cake mix, and that everyone is feeling safe and encouraged to participate. And more importantly, that everyone has equal footing over everyone else. Next tip that I have for you is communication and collaboration. Collaboration is key to be more transparent, productive, and a happier workplace. What does communication look like? Do you offer channels if you have remote employees and employees in the office that promotes collaboration? And those channels can be like Slack or Trello or Microsoft Teams or Zoom, some way that whether they're remote or in the office, we can talk to each other, we can share ideas, we can share comments. That opens those lines of communications and promotes that collaboration. You want to explain the why behind the how. A lot of the times we as managers get so wrapped up in how to get this accomplished that we don't take the time to explain to the employees why. Why was this decision being made? Why is this important? Why does this need to take place? Why are we under this time crunch? And those open lines of communication and collaboration are going to give you that loyalty to making sure that those employees want to stay with your team and not go somewhere else. You want to explain the company's goals and objectives in a clear and consistent and concise manner. And you want to offer transparency when appropriate. The one forgotten pillar of communication and collaboration is always employee recognition. There could never be enough employee recognition. There could never be enough thank yous. There could never be enough good jobs. There could never be enough, you did great at this. So recognition should be timely and frequent. Don't wait months to recognize something that you see right away. If you see it, take 5 minutes to tell that employee, great job, or you're doing phenomenal in this, or appreciate your efforts in this. It should be timely and frequent. More importantly, it needs to be genuine and authentic and engaging. Don't sound like a robot. Make sure that you're making that eye contact. Make sure that your words are coming from the heart when you're giving that thank you and that recognition. They need to be personalized and done in a manner that matters to the employee. You know your employees. You know if your employee is going to appreciate that recognition being done on a private matter, between you and that employee, or if you have the employee who wants to be on the stage and wants the glitter and the balloons and the hurrah. So take that into consideration when you're thinking about how am I going to recognize this employee. If you are not sure, I would advise you to do it on a one-on-one basis. The majority of people don't like to be that center of attention. But if you know your employee and you know that that's what they like and that's what they thrive, by all means, let's hang up balloons. Let's blow the whistle. Let's have everybody clap for that recognition. And recognition needs to be embedded in your culture. It shouldn't only be the business owner. It shouldn't only be the manager. You want to make sure that your supervisors are doing that recognition, but you're also encouraging employees to recognize each other. If they help each other, if they're there to train each other, you want to make sure that they're giving each other that recognition. One quote that we have here at Team Horner Group that I absolutely love and live by is what gets recognized gets reinforced, and what gets reinforced gets repeated. So when it comes to recognition, again, that repetitiveness and that reinforcement of saying your thank yous and saying great job is going to keep those open lines of communication and collaboration. So in a nutshell, you can see that retention is a very delicate balance. It will require 100% of your commitment as a manager and as a business owner to have an open mind, to work at it consistently, to make sure that you're putting your employees first, that you're giving them a voice, and that you're taking into consideration the feedback that they're giving you, that you're treating them well, that you're paying them well, and that you're being as transparent with them as you possibly can, and that you're giving them that sense of why. And if your sense of why and their sense of why aligns, then you will never lose another employee again. So if you truly respect, appreciate, communicate, and treat your employees wonderfully, you will never lose them. So strive for that. Okay, so those are my tips for you for today when it comes to retention. That does it for me today. I want to thank you very much for taking your time and joining me today to talk about retention. And if you joined me for the previous series of this webinar, when we did hiring and when we talked about how to source candidates, thank you again for your time then. And I look forward to spending some time with you again later. Take care now. Bye.